everyone, welcome to my channel, Bountiful Life. Today is a special show, and in this show is the Horse Redeemed. And this is the story of me and my rescue horse. So I wanted to really share what's going on in my life down here and this new adventure. And what has happened is, actually, my husband is like an indoor person, not an animal person or an outdoor person. And I was working on trying to get chickens because I wanted chickens to lay eggs so we could eat food. But he was like a hard no on chickens. So I was like, a horse. And I wasn't even shopping for a horse or looking for a horse. But there was a horse by where we go to church. And I had met this horse in November when he was purchased by his previous owner. Beautiful horse, healthy hair, perfect. Just the kids at church were petting him, and he was like just a wonderful horse to see. And then what happened was I didn't see him again until February. And when I seen him in February, he was tied to the back of a truck, like not a moving truck, a parked truck, and my van was parked on the other side after church. So I went to go, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go pet him, you know? And then I get around, I put my things in my van, I get to the truck, and he has no eye. So he's missing his eye on this side. And I was like so just taken back and shocked. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I reacted, like really reacted. And I don't know a lot about horses. So he like got a little nervous or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to the other side of the truck. So I went to the other side to try to pet him on his good side. And he was just so fearful, and he would like put his head away. He didn't want to be petted. And he was just really like afraid, and I felt so bad for him. And so I started talking to him and praying for him, and I'm like, hey, you know, sorry, you're such a good boy, sorry about your eye. And he started to calm down, but he still didn't want me to touch him, so I respected that. So I was like so worried about him, like what happened to his eye? As you can see, he's itching his eye a little on his leg. I was worried about like what happened to his eye. And my neighbors across the street from where I live, they have horses over there. And when we first moved here, he was telling my husband and I that he has 5 boys, and here in Puerto Rico, he said, if you want to keep your boys out of trouble, what you do is when they're 11 or 12 years old, you buy them a horse. So they don't have all this extra time after school to go around and mix with the wrong people and have time on their hands. Because after school, they have to go and mow lawns and cut grass and look for ways to feed the horse. So they're busy doing those things. So then that's what was happening. He has 5 sons, and they have probably 10 horses by now over there, and they take really good care of their horses and everything. So I had found out that this horse, the man that previously owned it, he had bought it for his son when his son came out of prison. But what we kind of learned from this story is that horses in that instance are for prevention, not for mitigating a bad situation, because he thought it would get his son on the right track, but obviously his son is older and not that interested as an 11-year-old boy would be like, oh, my horse, you know. So, I mean, the boy loved the horse and he took care of it, but he had other priorities and he was grown and had other things going on in his life. So, needless to say, when the horse had lost his eye, and he was so scared, and I felt so bad for him, and then I started like knowing sort of where they keep him, and I like, oh, back to the story. Okay, so after I like decided to leave, the day I saw him with his eye missing, maybe you can see his eye over here. Anyway, there's this. Anyway, the day that I had saw him with his eye missing, and I was so shocked and appalled, I was pulling away, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and I saw the boy that owned him, whose dad had bought it for him. I saw him in the rearview mirror carrying water, and I was there for quite a while talking to the horse. So I'm like, was he just waiting for me to leave so he could go to the horse and not have to talk to me? So, but I really wanted to know what happened to the eye. So I turned my van around and went back up there, and I'm like, hey, you know, is that your horse? And he had called him Psycho. But anyway, I changed his name. But I'm like, hey, is that your horse Psycho? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, how are you doing? How's he doing? And he's like, good. And I'm like, what happened to his eye? And he says, oh, I bought him like that. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you didn't buy him like that, because we saw this horse in November and he had 2 eyes. And so I was just like, oh my goodness, you know, like, what's going on? Like, and so I felt bad, because I'm like, why would you hide that? My neighbor across the street had one of his horses get a rope tangled, and it was like all bloody, and he was putting medication on, washing it twice a day. And I never even asked about it, but he's like, yeah, my horse got his rope tangled, and he told me the whole story. Like, if there's nothing to hide, why are you lying to me about it? So just off the cuff, because here in Puerto Rico, most anybody will sell anything if you name the right price. So just off the cuff, I just said, hey, is that horse for sale? And he was like, oh. And he's like, yeah, the horse is for sale. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, how much for the horse? And so he said $400. And I happen to have a little money hidden away from when I used to work on my raspberry and blueberry farms in the summer back home before we moved here. And so I'm like, I think I have that, you know. So then it got in my mind that I could possibly, you know, purchase him. But I'm like, I have to get my husband to agree. I have to find a place to put him. So all these variables. So I started asking around, and one of my neighbors, he has a place here that I had asked him about, and he had said I could put it there, but we were a little concerned, you know, what if he changes his mind? Then we have a horse and nowhere to put him, and our landlady would have a fit if we put him in our yard. So I mostly just started feeding him at his previous owner's place. And I traveled to the States for a month, and I was so worried about him because he was like showing his bones already. And I was like, I told the father, I'm like, please, please, please take good care of him, keep him healthy and strong while I'm gone. You know, I really am interested, and my husband's going to make a decision when I come back from the States. So he was like, he asked me to buy a bag of feed for him, but I had seen that day that he has all kinds of other animals. He has pigs, cows, chickens, and all of them all like eating on the horse's food. And I figured, like, you know, the horse is not part of his, you know, like he can't eat the horse or sell the horse for people that will eat him or anything. So the horse is probably like the last guy that gets food there. And I'm like, if I just buy a bag of feed and leave it there, he's going to share it amongst all the other animals. And so I had bought a bag of feed and left it with my daughter. And I said, you know, whenever you're in church, go and give him food, you know, bring some food and feed him. So she couldn't really find him the whole time that I was gone. When I came back, I made more friends with them and developed some of my Spanish. And I was able to find, he showed me all the different places where he was, because he knew I was trying to feed the horse and trying to buy the horse. So every time I was up there, and sometimes I would make special trips, I would go and feed him to keep him looking healthy. And my husband knew I was feeding him. So like my thought was, if I start feeding him and we're already paying for the food, it will be one step easier to really do this. But the whole thing was just really God that my husband even agreed to this. The catalyst that kind of made all of this happen, I had groomed him over the fence, so I was grooming him, and the previous owners gave me permission if they weren't there, and I found the horse that I could take him out and I could like work with them and feed him, and they didn't care. Like, they really wanted me to get the horse, but my husband wasn't agreeing, and we were kind of iffy on the whole thing. So then what happened next was the catalyst that really made me get the horse. I had went one Friday, which Friday was the day that I kind of had free, so I used to go up there and spend time with him for a while, like a couple hours in the middle of the day. So I had gone there that Friday to look for him, and I couldn't see him, and the father of the boy was there sitting on the porch getting ready to go somewhere. And so I asked him, and he has Spanish, and so I kind of really didn't get a clear picture of the whole thing, but I got the idea that the horse was up by this gas station where a lot of the drunk people go and hang out all day. And so he's like, it's tied up there with no food and no water. And I'm like, well, here I am. I'll go feed it and I'll give it water or whatever. So I went up to the place and I asked at the gas station, the girl working there, for the boy and with the horse. And she's like, he's not here, but she's like, look over there. The horse is probably over there. So then I went over there where the guys that drink were all at, and there was a horse that I saw, and I like went towards the horse, but it was a darker colored horse, and it had so many of its bones showing, and it just broke my heart, because I'm like, if I wasn't feeding him, that's what he would probably look like. Like, the horse looked like I would be afraid to ride it, because it it was so like bones poking out, like it just looked so sad. But so then I asked the guys, I'm looking for the horse with a one eye, and they're like, oh, that's the horse over there. So I went and I got my food from the car and my little grooming tool and everything that I was going to use. And then I realized that he had a bridle with a bit and blinders on, and he was pretty freaked out. Like that place, there's like busy traffic. He'd been tied there all day with no food and no water. And I got up there, and he was very spooky because he'd never seen me there before. And so I finally got alongside of him and got in front of him where he could see me through the blinders. And when he saw me, he knew who I was, and then he smelled my food, and he's like, oh yeah, it's you, you know. And he was ready. He started turning his head, and I realized he had the bit in his mouth. And there was nothing I could do. You can't feed a horse with a bit in its mouth, and I can't take it off there because he's already spooky and I don't know him well enough. And the guys were all afraid I was trying to steal someone's horse. So I was just like, let me go and get, what are you doing? What? I was all afraid of what he was doing, if he was going to be okay. I was afraid, you know, was he going to be okay? So I said, let me go get the boy's dad and see if he can come and take off the bit. And so then I went there, but he had already gone with whoever he was waiting for him to pick up. So he wasn't there, and so I was just heartbroken because there was really nothing I could do for him. Like everything I was trying to do, I was trying like to do everything, and I felt like everything I was doing was not enough that day. And I just cried so much. I cried all afternoon, and I was so upset, just praying for him and worrying about him. And I texted the dad, and I'm like, please, if he doesn't come back, please, can you go and haul the horse home tonight so he doesn't die, you know, don't leave him there. And so it turns out the next day was the day I was going to be there as well. And when I went there, then the horse was there, thank goodness, and he drank literally like 2 buckets of water. I had brought a bucket and I filled it, and he had drank 2 buckets of water, and by the time I left he had drank 3 buckets of water. Fed him, groomed him, calmed him down. And so that whole thing was the catalyst of my husband really realized that it was a dire situation for the horse and we needed to take him. So the next Tuesday he said, you know, we can get the horse, go and talk to your neighbor, make sure he'll still let us put him there. So we talked to him and he was good. And so we went and we paid extra, and they hauled the horse in the back of their pickup truck, which it was hard to load him. That's why I wanted them to do it. So hauled him over here. So we've had him here now for about a month, and he's really starting to calm down and settle in. He's really feels a lot more safe. He's looking good. My son and I have been grooming him every day and really taking good care of him. And he like neighs when he sees us, and he's just happy, like happier here. Like I take him out in the right of ways to graze here and sit with him, and he's laid down in front of me a few times. So we had the farrier over, and he's also a trainer, and he helps work with him, and he's actually really trained horse. He can lunge. I have to learn how to lunge because I was able to walk him, but when I tried to make him go faster, he started going like a clock around me. And I had just seen a video. I've been watching so many training YouTube videos of how to like really do it, and they've been very helpful. I've learned how to lead and do some other things. So I'm not riding him right now, but he can be ridden. So right now I'm doing groundwork so that he establishes relationship, and so he'll listen to me. So when I get in on top of his back, he'll listen to me. So this is a story, and I named him Redeemed because I wanted to redeem him from a bad situation that was dangerous and unhappy, and then redeem him to a happier life. And I think that he has a happier life. So let's go and see him, and then we'll say goodbye. So this is my horse, Redeemed. Hey baby, come, we want to see your pretty face. There we go. Here we are, and thank you for watching. Now you're going to be seeing more updates on Redeemed and how everything's going with that. And this was my horse rescue story. So thank you for watching. Please give me a like and a subscribe, and share this with your friends if you want to inspire other people to rescue animals. All of our animals we have are rescue animals. Thanks for watching. Bye.